In the last 5 to 6 years, we've been at capacity every night. That currently on our temporary campus is 70 young people with an assigned room guarantee every night. So 70. And then we do some emergency overnights for those that come to our door and we're just not going to be able to turn them away. Where there are at least 10 that we put on a bedroll or a cot every night. And then there are about 40 to 50 on a wait list that we are referring to other agencies, which is not our preference, which is what stimulated our Building for Life.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Spotlight Houston, where we bring you the best of the people, places, and events in Houston. This week we sat down with Felicia Broussard, Chief of Development for Covenant House, to discuss their mission to provide a safe shelter for homeless young women and men. This is episode 95, with an original air date of Monday, July 8, 2024. And now your host, Blanca Quezada.
That homelessness is a huge problem here in Houston. But did you know that we also have a large population of youth that are suffering from homelessness as well? And many of these young people experience homelessness for so many different reasons. They may be suffering from some trauma or some abuse, and they don't know where to turn to get help or shelter without experiencing fear. Because of their age, they easily go unnoticed, and unfortunately, they become victims of abuse or many other crimes. Fortunately, there's an extraordinary place, and I mean extraordinary because they do so much. And what they do is they provide shelter and so much more for them where they can feel safe and they have an opportunity to find their path for their independence and to have a successful life. In this place that I'm talking about is the Covenant House. And with me today is Felicia Broussard, who is Chief of Development of Covenant House, here to tell us all about the organization, this nonprofit that provides a lot of resources and that provides many programs and services to these homeless youth. Felicia, welcome to Spotlight Houston. Let's start with you telling us a little bit about the Covenant House, when it was founded, because I know it's been in Houston for a while now, and about the new facility that just opened last year.
Absolutely. Hello, Blanca. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening and also just to speak to Covenant House, Texas. And you're absolutely right. We've been a part of Houston for 40 years. And so we just ended our 40-year anniversary celebration. And we did a year-long recognition of our mission for several reasons. One, we still remain the only organization in the greater Houston area that exclusively and comprehensively serves homeless youth ages 18 to 24. And although there are lots of awesome organizations that absolutely serve homeless individuals, we're the only one that focus on that 18 to 24-year-old, that late adolescent, that young person who is aging out of foster care, perhaps, college age, post high school age, all sorts of things that have exposed them to a lifestyle of unsheltered living. And for young people who are what may be classified as homeless, they may be living in the car. They may be living couch to couch. Many of them are living in vacos, as the young people call them, or vacant buildings that are uninhabited and are not considered habitable. And they are all considered homeless unless they are in a permanent shelter with running water and the ability to have a bed and also facilities, a restroom, like I mentioned, running water, and all of the things that we can go home to and have protection. And so these are young people that some of them are actually living couch to couch in friends' homes, but have no residence or address to call their own. And so for so many reasons, they have wound up in a situation where they're experiencing homelessness, and Covenant House has been a part of the system that allows them to have a safe haven or a sanctuary, a respite to come to receive not only immediate shelter and basic needs, but then a comprehensive care model that allows them to move from that state of homelessness into permanent housing and self-sustaining ability for the rest of their adulthood.
And I love that the Covenant House has been doing that. I wish that there were more locations like that for kids that live in other counties. But how is it that they find out about the Covenant House? Because I'm sure that it's difficult for them to know that a place like this exists where they can get help and whatever their needs are.
Yes, when a young person arrives at Covenant House, either because they have sought us out and found us, or because through our street outreach program, we have identified them on the street, that is something that we assess. How do you know about us? How did you first encounter Covenant House, Texas? And that lets us know how to do the best job of reaching those that are most in need and being a place of rescue for them. And one of the things that we hear most often is that they found us on their cell phone. And by Googling shelters for youth or shelters for teens, we're the first one that come up. And while we are located in Greater Houston, we have young people that come to us from all different counties and even different states. Had a young man that's actually with us right now whose parent thought that Houston has more opportunity. There are plenty of jobs in Houston, and this is research that the father had done, gave his son a plane ticket and a cell phone and said, I will pay for 1 or 2 months of your cell phone bill. I'm putting you on a plane, go to Houston and find your way. There's a place in Houston called Covenant House.
Wow.
If you need somewhere to stay when you get off the plane, you can navigate there. You're an adult now. The young man just graduated from high school and he's 18. So he had no idea where to go, wound up at our front door and said, can you help me? And so his father found us through a Google search. And that is how most young people find us. We've had parents drop young people off at our front door, and it's because they don't want their child to live on the street, but they will not allow them to live at home any longer. And we don't ask any questions. Our goal is to keep young people from being homeless. We know the risks involved in even 24 hours left on the streets. There are just so many perils that are easily identifiable in our community and really nationally. But Houston, as one of the largest cities in the United States, is a hub of several things. And one of them, unfortunately, is human trafficking. And the statistic now is that within 24 to 48 hours, a young person who is identified as homeless will be connected with some or confronted with some form of human trafficking within 24 to 48 hours on the street. And so our time, we think, is very limited to reach these young people who we know are in danger and really have so much opportunity to thrive and have promising futures, but we have to find them and they need to find us as soon as possible. And so that's our goal, is to just be that place of respite for anyone who's in need and at risk of homelessness or who has been on the street for a period of time. There are several who have been living unsheltered for months, some of them even years.
How do you, you mentioned doing outreach.
Yes.
How do you know where to look?
Yeah.
Because these kids are, to me, I would seem kind of invisible.
Yes. It is a population, and we call them that they are living in plain sight. And many of them you would never even know. And that's their goal because they know they're at risk. They know they are objects of prey in many instances. And so they're hiding in plain sight. Rarely, and not 100%, but rarely will you see an 18 to 24-year-old who is on the street advertising that they're homeless or in need. And that is because they are really objects of trafficking, but also of so many other crimes. And so they are often hiding from the public eye. And we learn this by being on street outreach 3 to 5 times a week, just going out into the community and learning the streets of Houston. Our team has been a part of the Houston community for at least 30 years, going out every week. We have a van that is labeled with our logo on it, so we're identifiable, but we're building a rapport with the homeless community of any age. And we're taking toiletries and blankets and water and a meal out on the streets of Houston in areas that we know are common for any homeless person. We also know some areas where 18 to 24-year-olds tend to find a hiding place. And when we go there, it may not be the first time that we venture into those areas, but because we build a rapport with them, they begin to trust that when they come to Covenant House, Texas, they will find peace, they will find opportunity, they will find a loving hand that will help them move on to the next stage in life. And so our street outreach program, it intends to do one of 3 things. Number one, we're serving everyone who's in need, no matter what age, with basic needs, toiletries, hygiene, during the pandemic, PPE, food, and during the winter season, socks, gloves, hats, survival items. That's number one. Number two, we are sharing information on places and resources where you can go no matter what age you are. And the third and most important is that we're looking to identify 18 to 24-year-olds who are in immediate need and can hop in the van and come back with us. Or we're giving them a card that says, when you're ready, come to this address and we will welcome you in to Covenant House, Texas. And so that's the goal of our street outreach program. It's multifaceted, and certainly service is at the heart of that. But ultimately, the goal is to reach as many 18 to 24-year-olds as we can every night.
How do they usually survive out there by themselves without all the resources that they need?
Yeah, it's really tough. And Blanca, each of them has a unique story of how they've survived. There's one young lady in particular, I'll never forget, that she was living in her apartment complex, but right outside the clubhouse of her apartment complex in Pearland. And she would go behind the hedges and hope no one saw her because she was close to where her parents were. But the situation inside of her home was unsafe. And so she was close enough that she knew that environment. And she also knew that there was a security officer that roved the grounds of that apartment complex throughout the evening. And so she felt that would give her some hedge of protection. And then she also would go into the laundry area of the complex and wash her clothes. And so there were some facilities that she still had access to right outside the place that she should have been able to call home, but couldn't. And eventually that officer found her and said, what are you doing? Asked her some questions and then said, I know where you can go. And that officer brought her to Covenant House, Texas. So there's so many different stories, but a lot of them are hiding and surviving however they can. Some of them actually have some jobs. One young person was working at Applebee's and then sleeping behind the dumpster after she got off work. And so there's just so many different stories. There are lots of kids in high school who are trying to finish and complete their diploma, but then sleeping behind the school. And the breakfast and the lunch they receive at school is their way of surviving. They take a shower during gym class and they eat when they're at school. And then they live behind the school building until the next morning. And so you can imagine what happens during summer break, during the winter and the other school holidays. Those young people are in extreme risk of hunger and all sorts of other.
Yeah, even right now during the summer,
The heat.
it's like,
Absolutely. The heat is an immediate danger. And a lot of times people think of the cold, and in Houston, it's the opposite. It's the heat that's prolonged and the lack of water. Dehydration is something that we see very often. Malnutrition, very often. There's some young people that have, not only during that period of homelessness, but throughout their childhood, had insufficient health care throughout their childhood. And so dental care, eyesight, all of those things have prevented them from completing high school, from fitting in with their peers, from just having a healthy lifestyle in general. And now they're 18. And so they're on their own as adults. And yet they've had no background of strength, support, love, trust, health care, economic stability. All of those things have been broken for many of them throughout their childhood and then moved into early adulthood.
and I'm sure having to lie about their situation in their homes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them don't disclose and don't want to disclose to their peer groups. Adolescence is a difficult time for any young person, but when you're dealing with poverty and abuse and all sorts of other neglect, those are things that kids and teenagers really try to conceal as long as they possibly can, not knowing that the next stage may be even more detrimental. Really, that is one thing that we're trying to heal them from as we build a trust relationship with them along their path. And that's probably one of the most important things that we're trying to do while they're with us at Covenant House is during that period, allowing them to understand that there are some adults that care. And there are people in this community that are there to support them in a number of ways to help them heal, not only physically, but mentally. And part of their journey with us is seeking mental health care. As you know, just in general, mental health care is a significant issue for a lot of us. And so even without the issue of homelessness, mental health is an issue for all ages. But for 18 to 24-year-olds, they are transitioning in a most critical period psychologically. The cortex is developing. They are not yet adults in many ways. And if you've had any trauma in your childhood, that has delayed your cognitive development. And behavioral issues arise from a lack of attention to mental health, psychology. And so when we can get a hold, and even simple group therapy, it's so helpful in stabilizing a young person at a very critical developmental period. The college environment helps to do that for those that enroll on a college campus. And we aim to do the same for the young people that come to Covenant House. We have had a 37-year relationship with Baylor College of Medicine, and their physicians, psychologists, and psychologists are on our campus 5 days a week. And they're part of our medical clinic, and they counsel our youth, psychologists and psychiatrists right on our campus, but that ties in with their physical health care as well.
Oh, that's great because it's so necessary for them. So what other services do you provide?
One of them is the medical clinic. And one of the things that we believe is that if we make it easy for the young people to receive all of their resources and all of their services, then the likelihood of them engaging, participating, and working with us throughout this process is greater. And we call it a campus, and that is because it's not just shelter, it is also physical care. They get a physical exam within the first 24 hours that they're with us. Every young person has a complete physical examination by a physician. We're taking care of any infections that may be detected, as well as their dental and eyesight. We have partnerships with a number of agencies in Houston that allow us to address those issues. The other most critical thing, I think, is that without completing education or obtaining a job, and we hope a career, there is not much hope for economic stability after Covenant House, Texas. And so how can you afford an apartment if you don't have a job? And so what we're working on is helping them through a strengths-based, trauma-informed care model that is evidence-based. We're helping them to seek the resources they need to acquire that first job. Many of them have never been employed, don't know anything about a resume. They've never had an interview before. And so we're doing mock interviews with them. We're helping them to form their first resume. We're working with them on their interpersonal skills, their conversational skills. What do you wear to an interview? So we have a clothing closet where they can be outfitted in appropriate attire and feel confident in who they are as they're going to get their first job. And then the other part of getting your first job is maintaining it. And so we have young people, as you can imagine, 18 to 24-year-olds in their first job. They get there and they find out, I don't like fast food, so I quit. And so every time they come back to us, every night, we're thinking, how can this be a learning experience? How can they grow along the way? We're their safety net in a lot of ways. And many of us have been blessed with parents and grandparents and mentors and advisors, even counselors that will tell us tidbits, or we've seen it in front of us as we've grown up. But most of our young people have not had that advantage. And so Covenant House provides them with the youth engagement specialist that will say, next time you want to quit a job, you need to turn in a 2-week notice. And you need to be prepared for the job that's next before you quit. It's called resignation, not quitting. And so these are some things that we work through with young people to help them understand professionalism and really honing the skills that we see. Each of them comes with some strengths. And so we're trying to develop those strengths and find out their interests and fit them into a plan that will help them be successful well beyond Covenant House, Texas. And for some of them, that means let's get your diploma. Let's finish your degree. Let's re-enroll in college. Let's figure out financial aid so we can get you back into U of H.
It's amazing. I'm always amazed at how much you can help and that it's a long-term support for these kids. It's not just a few days or a few months, but it's long-term.
It is. Yeah, they can stay with us up to 18 to 24 months. And we found that the longer that they stay with us, the more skills they build, the more strength they gain.
And don't have anything to be afraid of.
That's right. That's right.
Do you happen to have any idea on the number of homeless youth that are out in our streets?
Yeah, there's actually a really good study that's done in Houston every year. It's called the Point in Time Count. And many agencies underneath the city of Houston, it's a city initiative that started several years ago so that we can track the growth or the decline of homelessness in our city. We go out for 2 or 3 nights in Houston and literally do a head count of those living unsheltered. And out of that, we're able to look at subpopulations. So there is a specific head count for 18 to 24-year-olds. And while this does not count every homeless person, because we may not find everyone,
Right.
it does count those that are in shelters and those living unsheltered on the street. And there are approximately 200 young people in Houston every night unsheltered that are countable. And so we know there are many more than that.
And they might not be the same kid as the night before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that is just a point in time. So it's really looking at 1, 2, 3 nights that we're looking at Houston and trying to get a sense. And the process is done in the same way each year. So there's a comparative look from year to year at how Houston's doing in solving the issue.
And how many people or how many of these kids can you accept at the Covenant House?
Yeah. So you mentioned that we have a new facility. And so that will open in 2025, early 2025. And while we've been in Houston for 40 years, in the last 5 to 6 years, we've been at capacity. every night. That currently on our temporary campus is 70 young people with an assigned room guarantee every night. So 70. And then we do some emergency overnights for those that come to our door and we're just not going to be able to turn them away. Where there are at least 10 that we put on a bedroll or a cot every night. And then there are about 40 to 50 on a wait list that we are referring to other agencies, which is not our preference, which is what stimulated our Building for Life. This was the impetus for our Building for Life capital campaign. And we knew that at capacity every night with buildings that have been used for 40 years, it was time to find a solution. And that solution is to demolish all of our buildings located in the Montrose area and rebuild on the same property a 104,000 square foot facility that will accommodate 50% more youth. And so in its completion, we will be able to serve at least 140 youth every night.
Do you also take in young women with babies and toddlers?
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Blanca. Not only 18 to 24-year-olds, but 18 to 24-year-olds that have children. And right now, we just had an influx in the last 2 weeks of several mothers, one of them with 3 children. And she's under the age of 23. And she has 3 children. And so when you think about a young person who is homeless, 18 to 24, that's very difficult on your own. But then having the responsibility of 3 little ones under the age of 6, how can you?
I can't even imagine what these young women feel
That's right.
and are thinking.
And these are great mothers who want better for their children. And so
Yeah.
the difficulty, however, is that childcare is costly. So how do you go to work? And if you can't afford childcare, then how can you get childcare if you don't have a job? And so that we're here to help them with that.
Do you need volunteers at the facility?
Always, yes. Blanca, we could not fulfill our mission and our promise to these young people without a band of support from the community. And that can happen in a number of ways. However, folks feel comfortable. We have volunteers that come in and provide life skills workshops. There's that. And then we have, of course, our clothing closet, which always needs filling. And so we accept new items, any clothing items that you can think of that we go to easily in our drawers every day. Socks, underwear, hygiene products, all of those ways are ways that folks.
Yeah, things we take for granted.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And young people just want a clean pair of underwear. And so that is so helpful. Blankets, comfort at night is just always helpful. We love when donors come in with linens, sheets, and towels and washcloths are always useful. Soap, shampoo, combs, and brushes. And the other way that folks can help, of course, is with giving. We do accept donations. We have lots of foundations and individuals and corporations that partner with us throughout the year and help us in a number of ways. And that could be through grants, gifts, or event sponsorship.
So what is your website and phone number where people can connect with you to help out, or some of these young people that need to go into a shelter?
Yes, our website is www.covenanthousetx.org. That's our website. And if you're interested in volunteering, in giving, and getting involved, that number would be 713-630-5670.
Felicia, thank you so very much for joining me and for informing us about the great work that the Covenant House is doing for homeless youth. And of course, as always, I'd like to thank you all as well for joining me. And if you can, send me your comments. And if you have any story ideas, please let me know.